Amoako Glover, and this is the first episode of the Amoako Glover Show. If you haven't already, please check out the intro episode where I talk about who I am and why I started this show. But today we get personal. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I want to use this first episode to tell you something that for a long time I wasn't sure I would ever say publicly. My father, James Kwejo Amoako Glover, lived with untreated schizophrenia for most of his life. And I want to use my first episode to tell his story, which is also my story. My father was a brilliant man. That is what everyone who knew him says. He was a brilliant and remarkable lawyer. He was very sharp, very astute, and he was also a fighter for freedom and justice. During his time at the University of Ghana, Legon, he was the SRC president. He led student demonstrations for better care, better services, and to ensure students' voices were heard. And of course, he was a member of Commonwealth Hall. His law career is marked by legacy cases etched in history. He gained recognition for winning the notable Amoako to 4 land case against the Attorney General in 1976. All my life, all those who knew him knew about the absolute brilliance of my father. One thing no one really spoke about was his mental illness. At some point in his life, my father got schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a very serious and chronic mental health disorder that affects how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. People with schizophrenia often appear as though they have lost touch with reality, which can be very distressing both for them and those around them. Schizophrenia is one of the most distressing and painful mental illnesses. It can cause people to hear voices that aren't there, see things others can't see, believe things that feel real to them but are not. It makes the mind chaotic. It can lead to withdrawal, confusion, and a kind of emotional silence. My father had almost all of these symptoms. I don't know the exact point that my father developed his illness. What I know is he was in exile at some point in the UK for anti government rhetoric, and being exiled devastated him, broke him. Not being able to do the work he loved, losing his voice, it wrecked him. It broke his mind. I know my father wasn't with us when I started Bridge Church School at age 6. We were living with our grandparents at the time. We didn't see our father for a really long time. And then at some point, he was allowed to visit us and take us with him for like a day or so. And that's when I started to notice something was wrong. No one told us. No one told us, his children, that our father wasn't well. No one explained why we weren't with our parents. At least for me, there was no sit down, no explanation, no conversation. One of the visits with my father that I clearly remember, we walked miles and miles with him along the coast of Tema. It was exhausting. I remember that because it just felt really horrible for me. It felt like an endless walk. Then we got to where he was staying, and I remember this so clearly. We had fish and cake, but the whole thing just felt off. We didn't really see him again after that visit. And then the next time I saw my father, He was on the streets. He was actually living on the streets. He was carrying a bag and roaming. It was the most shocking thing I had ever seen or experienced. And it rocked me. That was my father. And I didn't understand why. And we still hadn't been told that he had a mental illness or condition. And I did get why a man everyone said was brilliant was on the streets. And I don't remember having a single meaningful conversation about his situation. The narrative at home simply was that he was not well, he wouldn't accept treatment, and so he was on the streets. But I didn't get it. Not well how? Like, what was the problem? Why couldn't he just be grabbed and taken care of? Then another time, I was with friends in a car, and then I saw him again on the streets, completely dirty, dragging a bag, talking to himself, and walking. And I couldn't even ask my friends to stop the car so that I could go to my father. I was completely shaken and completely embarrassed. I was traumatized. And that's what it was. It was pure trauma. I never told a single friend growing up that my father was sick and on the streets. I simply said that my parents were divorced and we lived with our grandparents. My mom was temporarily by herself, trying to get back on her feet. That was it. That was the story. But each day, I was actually frightened that someone would know. Someone would find out that my father, my own father, was one of those people roaming the streets. I was fearful, and to be honest, I was also ashamed, but I was also angry. I was angry at everyone who knew him and let that happen. I was originally planning to be a lawyer like my father. I badly wanted to follow in his footsteps. He was a poet as well, and I had the same gift for words, so I was determined to be him. But when I got to the University of Ghana, I no longer wanted to be him. I wanted to understand him. And so I chose to study psychology. And it was during this time that I also actively tried to help him. I remember I got the police once and we drove around. We eventually found him because he had particular places he would go to. And then we took him to Accra Psychiatric Hospital. And to be honest, going to visit my father there was a horrible experience. I don't know if the hospital is different now, but back then, the times we'd go and visit, he would be on the floor, eating from a bowl on the floor, and he just seemed out of it. And another visit, he was just gone from the hospital. He escaped, as they put it. And then we're back to square one. There were multiple other attempts to pick him up from the streets and get him help. There was even one attempt that really gave me hope. We found him and we took him to a hospital in Joel. It was that doctor who actually confirmed for me what I had assumed based on my studies that my father had schizophrenia. That hospital's treatment actually worked. It was the most lucid I had ever seen my father. And the conditions at that hospital were much better. We were able to bring him home after a few weeks. And then the hard part, the really hard part, getting him to stick to medications and the protocol. I remember vividly an argument I had with him, like I even know where I was standing. It was in the kitchen near the round table, the dining room round table. And he wouldn't listen to me. He wanted to leave the house. He was agitated. And I was saying no. I kept saying no. And then he called me a control freak. And for some weird reason, that comment hurt me. I don't know why. It just really hurt me when he called me a control freak. And then he decided to leave, and I couldn't even restrain him. He went out the gate. I followed. I was begging him to stay. He wouldn't listen. I followed him for as long as I could. He really knew how to walk. And then I stopped following. And I felt so much guilt that I stopped following. I felt like I had failed him because I was so determined to rescue my father and to help him. And each attempt, I failed. I gave up for a while, to be honest. But every now and then, I would see him. And then sometimes I started to actively look out for him on the streets and take him food. But he never wanted to see me. And I was torn between giving him space and helping him. And some years later, after I had left university, I decided, I want to try again. Like let's do this again. It was just eating at me that my own father was on the streets. So I went to see an old friend of his, um, retired Captain Kofi Amwabe. I didn't really know Mr. Amwabe. I just went to his office and I said, I'm Waku's daughter and I need help. And Mr. Amwabe stepped right up already. He just, no questions asked. So he helped me to find my father. We got him admitted to another hospital. I think that one was also in Joe. It was a really good facility. My father was there for quite a while. Mr. Marvin covered all the costs. He gave clothes to my dad. We went there every single day. We spoke to the doctors often. And this time, it worked. My father was discharged and he accepted the help that was offered. Um, we got him a place to stay at my mom's family house. He was on medication. He was lucid for the most part. But unfortunately, less than a year later, he passed away from cardiac complications. His death hit me really, really hard because he was finally doing better. After decades of being on the streets, after decades living on the streets, he was actually doing better. And then he was gone. One of his old friends, Mr. Pakwesi Yankee, basically took charge of the funeral and really stepped up to help us. A lot of his friends came through for us. And even his former partner and really close friend, the former president, Nana Akufo-Addo, buried him. And I mean this literally. Former president Nana Akufo-Addo helped to dig the hole and pour the dirt. And then the brilliant man, James Kojo Amoako Glover, who had struggled for most of his life, was laid to rest. This is a story I have never told or shared with anyone. But I wanted to share it now for a number of reasons. First, mental illness is not a choice. My father did not choose to have schizophrenia. The causes of schizophrenia include genetics, family history plays a role, brain chemistry and structure. There are imbalances in neurotransmitters like dopamine, environmental factors like stress, trauma, or substance abuse can actually trigger onsets in those who are predisposed. My father didn't pick up a menu of mental disorders and decide that, I feel like having schizophrenia. That should be fun. No, my father didn't choose to hear things, to see things, or to live on the streets. He was ill. Mental illness is not a choice. It is a very painful situation for those who have it, and anyone who thinks someone with mental illness is in control is wrong. Even with treatment, Most mental illnesses are very difficult to manage. Even with treatment, you're just not the same. You struggle. Second reason why I want to share this: people with mental illness deserve care and understanding and empathy, and they don't deserve to be mocked. I never agitate, attack, or mock anyone with mental illness, especially those on the streets. I am very sensitive to how people speak about mental illness and how people regard those on the streets, because my father was one of them, and he was not in control of himself. You never know. Look, you just never know. That person on the streets that you see, maybe a doctor, lawyer, father, husband, brother, pastor, you never know. Anyone with mental illness deserves patience, understanding, and compassion first and foremost, never ridicule. The third reason why I want to talk about this is mental illness can happen to anyone, absolutely anyone. When my father was practicing law and winning cases and being a political activist, I don't think he expected to ever fall sick. No one chooses it and no one plans it. Mental illness can happen to anyone. Like, life is extremely stressful. We are all living on edge. We are all struggling to survive. We don't know what is around the corner. That could be our tipping moment to release some dysfunction hidden in our genes. A lot of mental illness is genetic and also environmentally induced, as well as brain chemistry. The fourth reason I want to talk about this is it is important not to make assumptions regarding the family and friends of those struggling with mental illness. This is very, very important. When I was growing up, I didn't understand how or why my father could be on the streets when he was such a prominent lawyer and he had powerful friends. I didn't understand until I was old enough to try and help him. And then I understood. Like, we tried multiple times and all attempts failed, except the last one. So who knows if those who came before us have also tried. Getting someone hospitalized is one thing, but what comes after is the real challenge. So, I don't assume anything anymore. I carried a lot of guilt and a lot of anger for years that he was in his condition. And to be honest, I blamed others for not helping, but I didn't have the full picture. It is not easy to help someone with mental illness because there's also a trauma to those who are witnesses to their loved one's predicament. The fifth reason why I want to share is because these conversations need to happen among family, among friends, among colleagues. To be really honest, my family has never actually sat down and fully discussed my father's situation and condition to date. It is still somewhat unspoken. That is because it is a very difficult conversation to have. It is very difficult to confront such a painful past. There is guilt and shame we carry, and that limits conversation. But I want to start, and I want to encourage others to start. Being witness to my father's illness and his deterioration and his condition was absolutely traumatic for me. Like, can you even imagine it? To see your own flesh and blood, your father, who living on the streets, to not understand what is happening, Like, it creates a wound inside of you that can take forever to heal. And like, if I'm being really honest, I don't think I'm healed from the experience of having a father with schizophrenia who lived on the streets. No, like, I'm not healed from it. So if you know anyone, if you know someone with any form of mental disorder or condition, please show patience, have empathy and compassion, and be kind. Absolutely no one chooses to have a mental illness. No one. People with mental illness, are some of the most resilient people in the world, like hands down. Their strength to wake up each day is unmatched. And if you're someone who cares for someone with mental illness, stay strong. Don't give up. Get help for yourself, but don't give up. Your friend, your family, whoever it is that has something going on, they need you. They need your continued love, understanding, and patience. But obviously, don't do it to the detriment of yourself, but please don't give up either. You are the rock that helps them to keep going. We really need to do more for people with mental illness. We need to stop attacking them, ridiculing them, and blaming them for a condition they didn't choose. We need to have empathy. We need to push for resources. And we need to end the stigma. That's about it. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening to my father's story. I look forward to having you again next week as we dive more into life, health, and relationships on the Amoako Glover Show. These are real stories, real healing, real me. Thank you, and I look forward to having you next week.